Hello, Dan back again. How y'all doing? This is my second video I'll be posting on a 30-foot dory that I've decided to build. Once again, the plans are from Jeff Spira International. If you're looking for a simple construction type of project, this is the guy to see. Really well drawn out plans. All the details are there. You literally don't have to do anything but transfer what he has on the plans onto your work table and your paper you lay out so you don't draw on your table. And it's pretty easy. Now, plans are usually laid out in full, and then the measurements are taken from up and then across to get to your points. Now, that's what he has done here. So it's really easy. I was looking on YouTube for a while for something to do, and that's how I came across Jeff Spira International Plans. Now, I called him up, talked to him. I made my mind up what I wanted after a little bit of research. I ordered the plans. They were reasonable. Man's got to make a living, just like everybody else. His support is there too. I'm in Alberta, Canada, and he's out in California there somewhere. And it's like he lives right next door. He's more than happy to talk to you, help you out. I was looking for a cabin for this, and I mentioned it on the site we're on. And I think 2 hours later, he told me he'd send me a drawing that I could use, but I would have to make it fit my size of boat. And he sent it to me, and I downloaded it. And no charge. That was really nice, and that fast. So the man, take care of you. You know, he values his customers, and I really appreciate it. So anyway, that being said, I settled on the 30-foot dory. My first installment on YouTube explains why, so I'm not really going to go and get into that today. I'm going to let you know how I went about cutting and setting up my pieces for my frames. Now, for those of you that might think it's a little crazy to build a boat, if you don't want to get into an extensive build, and like myself, I'm limited on tools. I don't own a garage. I notice a lot of people build their boats in the garage. 30-foot boat, I don't even think I would have a garage that would hold a 30-foot boat. But this is going to be built outside in March when when winter passes, outside underneath a tarp. A lot of people do that too. I also have limited tools in the sense that I'm not using fancy tools. I notice some people have table saws and everything, and I have one, but it's outside in the shed, and I can't bring that in the house. So what I'm starting to do here is I'm going to do all my framework right here in the basement of my house. And once they're all together, they're just going to have to sit here until spring, till I'm ready to start assembling it. Now, since I'm doing this bi-monthly here on a budget, I'll be collecting the materials I need over the winter instead of, you know, having the cash and dropping a couple of $1,000 for sheeting, in this case 3/4 inch plywood, 2x4s. I've chosen to use cedar. You don't have to. Yeah, fiberglass resins. They're all kind of pricey, and if you break it up, I think it's easier to do it that way if you don't got the budget to go out and buy everything kind of all at once. So I'm going to call this one piece at a time. Okay, so I have my phone hanging up on the shelf there, and I really can't move it around. So I tried to look for the best spot to put it where I can kind of show you what's going on here. And I'd like to give you some close-up shots, but then I'd have to take the phone down. It'll be shaking, and I think I can explain it well enough that the phone could stay right there, because you're going to be getting what they call a rough cut, no alterations. I'm not in a position to be able to do that, and I think I can do it this way. So you'll just kind of have to bear with me. Thank you. I may have to also get up and walk around the table, and I may have to show you my back. I apologize for that too. So first of all, what I did is I took the plans and I took all the measurements for all 15 frames in my case, and I drew them all up on this board. Actually, you can't see it, but all the lines, or maybe you can, all the lines I drew up on the end of this board, and they're to scale. The angles, everything's just to scale. So after I drew these up, my intentions were to be able to use those lines from the factory edge, and I use this neat little tool. I call it an angle finder. If there's a fancy name for it, let me know. So I take this, I put it on the bottom edge of the wood over there, set where I want my angle, tighten it up. Then I take this, I get my lumber, I put it on the edge of the lumber, and I scribe my lines, right? And then that's how I get this. Now you can't go and cut them all and use the same angle, because they're all different, okay? All 15 are different. All 15 frames are different size. So you'll have to take what I did, like I take my reference here, my lines, and I use whichever one I'm doing number 11 right now. So I went down to the bottom 11. I took my angle finder, as I just explained, and I found my angle, and so I cut it. You can see that there. I put it in front of my sweater here. Okay, that's the angle. I don't know what the projector is. I don't have the tool for that to tell me how many degrees it is. But he doesn't go by degrees on the plan, okay? So if you measure, I don't want to get ahead of myself here. Okay? So if you measure, everything's measured from the center. You see, can you see that? There's a line right there. So I take that center line, and I have drawn a line up here, determining how much table I need for all my frames. So from this line here, I should be able to make all my frames as they get taller and wider on this table. So that's why I did this line. So I'm going to take the center line on my 2x4 cedar, and I'm going to put it on the edge of the table like this, and I take a clamp, my single clamp, and I line it up with the line I drew across the table here, right across. It goes right over to the other side. Okay, so that's lined up now with this ledge, with the center of my bottom 2x4. Now I'm doing exactly like Jeff has done on the paper. Here's the bottom of the 2x4. On the drawing, it's in the same place. Everything's on the right-hand side, written on his plans. I'm building it on the right-hand side. So when I go to do the other side, I flip this over, and I do the same thing again. The only difference is I'll have to support this one to keep it up, so the sides end up on the same side of this former, okay? So after measuring up, now using this line, all I have to do now is determine my height and my width. So each one of those frames on the drawing tell you how high and how far over to go to establish the angle of your sides. Now I've got ahead of, obviously I've cut everything up. I don't think you're really going to get entertained by listening to this run. It's loud. Okay? I have found I've got skill saws, I've got table saws, I've got jig saws, I got hand saws. This tool here is the handiest saw to use and the easiest to cut the 2x4s. Because I've tried the other ones and they're just too cumbersome. Now I got a double cutting blade on this, double-edged cutting blade, and it cuts up, not down. I just prefer it because I'm used to cutting wood and trying to keep the bottom, saving the bottom finish. And it cuts really nice. The second time I've used this blade, and it's sharp and it lasts a long time. But you do pay a little bit more for a double-sided blade. It's really neat. Anyway, now that being said, angle finder, jigsaw. I used to have a T-square, but I don't know what happened to that. It was longer than this 40-inch ruler, but for the most of it, this is doing the job to draw my lines. Pencil, number 8 bit, tape measure. Oh yes, the drill. I use a 1/8 drill bit to pre-drill all my holes on my side lumber. Because you only need the screws to bite into the lower piece, because we're going to use industrial glue on all the joints, and we're going to use 2 screws to hold it, to let it dry into position. Okay, so we'll give you a heads up on that, and I will do this now for you as we go. Now once you've determined how far across and how high you got to go, in this case, for ease, I have a box over there, as you can see, and it's full of shot blasting beads out of a sandblaster, steel shot. I've had them about 30 years now. I used to work in a relining shoes in a shop, and I operated the bead blaster machine. And I build model airplanes also. And I found that by bagging them in the small bags, it was nice to keep my models, the balsa wood, in place while I glued it. So I still have them. So I'm using that to ground exactly where I need that wood to end without allowing it to move at all. Because that's what I have. And if I were to use something else, I would just have to maybe fill a jug full of water for weight. So once you've got this cut up, now you line up the bottom corner here. You line up the bottom corner with the bottom corner here. Now after you've scribed and cut your angles you need based on the paperwork and your lines, or wherever you're taking your measurements, wherever you're taking them from, I'm sure everybody does this differently. I'm doing this way because it's easy and it works for me. Now, Jeff was explaining when you line things up, and it makes a lot of sense if you've done any woodwork. I used to build decks, like I say. If you're 1/8 inch out on your first piece, and you've got a bunch of pieces to put in after that, you can't keep on being out by 1/8, because at the end of your project, you may need that measurement and you won't have it, because you're just using up precious measurement. So try to get it as close as you can to that measurement. This way, in this case, you've got 15 formers. Everything's going to meet at the other end when you're done assembling it, because you've cut everything as close as you possibly can. Okay? So if somebody says, well, if it's off a little bit, maybe that's okay. Maybe in this case it's not okay. So always try to get it dead on. So I'm using that box. I've already measured it. The far corner of that box is the top of my side. So, but I'm not worried about that. I'm going to make sure that it's touching the box, because that's my width from the center line. And I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to make sure that these 2 corners right here are matching. Now I went ahead, like I said, I already cut all these property angles, and I use my angle finder, and I use my jigsaw, and I cut it. So right now it's really nice. Now if you cut it and this angle here falls up higher onto the wood, I wouldn't worry about that too much, because you're still gluing all the rest of it to that wood. Just make sure your corners are matching. Same goes for the piece of wood in the back. If you've done all your angles properly, you should be able to match this up. And I'd say that's about 95% here. It's really close. Now, if you do go over it a bit and you need to trim it a bit, I got an orbital sander. And it takes 5 seconds with 80 grit paper just to sand that out, okay? So that's cool. So I'm using construction grade glue on this. And Jeff says if you glue it with construction grade glue, you can take the screws out of it after, and that glue will actually hold it together just as well. He says if you try to pry them apart, the glue will actually break the wood off. The wood will break, not the glue from the wood. And that's pretty impressive, because I haven't really used a lot of this glue type thing on woodwork. But the 2 screws I am going to put in here to fasten my sides down will stay in here. I'm using ceramic coated screws. Because the shin log and stuff still has to be cut out here, the 1x3, and you don't want no screws in there. And I did a couple of my other frames. I will have to remove the screws because I got a little close with my screws. So I am going to go ahead and I'm going to glue this frame. I got my glue here already. Excuse me, I have to go plug in my drill. I definitely have to hook up an electrical bar there. So let's see here. Okay, so line up that corner. Make sure the top is lined up. You notice here I used a small 2x4 to make sure it's level, just to get the best fit over here. So I'm going to go ahead and pre-drill this. Okay. Okay, now what I did not do, you probably don't have to do this. I like to know exactly how far I'm going to glue it, so I put a line in here. And since I don't have to apply the glue to the other side, this is going to suffice. Okay, this is going to work just fine. So I made a little cap here. I took tape and I scrolled it around because this dries out like overnight. You won't get the glue out of the tip. So what I did is I made tape and plastic, and I shoved some of that glue in there, put it back on, rolled it around, and it's sealed. It doesn't dry anymore, so it worked. I hate the $7 a tube. I hate to waste it, right? Now another thing too, while we're on wasting, you don't need a lot of this glue, because if you put too much glue on it and you go to screw it down and it fastens that wood together, it's going to ooze all out the sides. Now it doesn't ooze out all at once. You can come back 2 hours later and there's more glue coming out of that joint because that wood's still settling, okay? So take it easy with the glue. Now for me, that's more than enough. I'm going to realign my piece of wood very carefully. Now when you glue in something and you press down on it, the wood's going to want to move around. So press down slowly. And then it'll actually stop moving. Line up your corner, line up the top, everything looks good. So now, I should have got my screws, sorry. Passing the camera again. I'll bring extra just in case I need it. Now these are what I'm using. I believe they're 2.5 inch ceramic coated. I could have went with a decking screw that's green, but that's for something else. I think it's for treated wood. Now I'm just going to sit down here, just make it easier on myself. I'll pop that out. I have another drill, it's back here. I may just put the drill bit in one drill and use the other drill for the screws. That actually found the hole. I felt the wood move over. Check your alignment. It's supposed to be good. Everything is good. Commit your second screw. Now, since you pre-drilled this, try to avoid sinking your screw in too far. Because if you have to retract the screw, it's going to split all your wood. Or you do what I do, and I'm not using it right now, is a countersink. $17 for those nice little countersinks, and then your screw head fits in there. Now, if it has to come out, you won't break the wood around it. It's a nice tool. I should be using it. See that? The glue's oozing out the bottom a bit. It wasn't there 2 minutes ago, so it still seeps out. So that former now is glued. Okay? Now I'm going to take my vise off like that. Make a little bit of room. I am not anal about being clean, but as I'm getting a little older, I find it's just easier to work with a clean space. Matter of fact, when this is complete, I will put it aside. I will dust the table off of any debris and the floor, and I will set up my to cut or do whatever I have to do for my next unit. Okay, so I'm going to take this and flip it over. Now, one thing I haven't done here, and I should have done this, is I should use my square on this. Where did I put my square? Here it is. And I should have drawn my line to the other side. I didn't do that. So I'm going to do that right now. Quiet. I got my dogs upstairs crying. I got 2 German Shepherds, and when I'm down here, they don't like it. They're just like children. The second you think you got them figured out, they surprise you. Okay. Now, we won't need the spacer. The box is still exactly where it was when we made the other side. So, I'm going to take my piece of wood. This has to go under like that, right? Now, remember what I said about lining it up at the back edge here. Perfect. I'll take my square and I'll do a quick check. There, that's it. It's lined up. Now, double check everything before you commit yourself. This is good. This is still good. My dogs are crying upstairs. I may have to... Okay. Okay, so this corner is aligned. It's aligned at the top. Perfect. So now I got to unalign everything. Okay, that's okay. We're good, we're good. We're good. As you can see, as I'm doing this one a little differently, I believe how you get there doesn't matter, just as long as you get it right. Okay, so I'm going to use the bottom of this one to line it to the bottom of the table here. It's going to take some of the work out of it. All I have to make sure is that I get this far corner aligned before I commit it. Okay, so I'm centering it. My bottom is good. Not going quite as planned. That's okay. Okay, the top is good, the bottom is good. This is lined up. I'm just going to check for my center. Okay, we're a little past there. We're going to bring it back. Very slidey, very slidey. Okay, my center is good. My top is good. My bottom is good. Oh well, there we go. Here's something else I should have done. The advantages of having two drills. You wouldn't have to stop to switch it out. But that's okay. I'm used to cumbersome. Okay, so I'm going to commit your holes. Yes, I've done this a couple of times. I have also done that a couple of times. Okay, do a last check. Now this should theoretically just fall right back in there. Right position. Yeah, I felt that. It grabbed that hole and pulled that piece of wood. It's lined up. Look at that. Okay, the top is touching over there. It's touching the box. Perfect. The corner is perfect. The alignment here is right on. My table is aligned perfectly. Okay? Well, come on now. I don't think it's as important this time because of the fact that it's the second hole I drilled should grab that piece of wood and line it right up to where I had it. So I'll do that right now. I'm going to double check it. Okay, now that's it. It's done. Two screws. Of course, now these screws are on the opposite side of the wood. That doesn't matter. We're just using them to fasten the wood so the glue will dry. But what's important is that you get these on the same side. So don't get carried away and drop the other side off the table by accident and then put this one on top. It probably wouldn't do a darn thing. It's just it's not designed to go on opposite side, even though it would still work. Okay? So now, it's what I got. Here's my former. Beautiful, isn't it? Just, it's that easy. Now, I am going to show you what I do to... Well, let's do it the other way. We'll do it this way. You're probably sitting there wondering, how does this guy have patience to work in such a small area? I don't. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I want to double check my measurements. So I'm going to go back to the plan, and I'm going to double check what the width was across the top. Excuse me. Okay, I'm supposed to have 71 inches if I did the math right. Let's find out how close we are here. So since we're supposed to take it from outside to outside, we're going to 71 inches. We'll see how close I am. Okay, I have to actually recheck that. Okay, I'm out. So, what I got to do now, and you might run into this problem, I'm going to take this I'm going to quickly put it at the edge of my table. I'm going to put the center on my center line. I'm going to clamp this. The glue's oozing out. I'm going to clamp this. Now what I'm going to do here, this is now straight on the edge. I'm going to go up to my center line. I'm going to measure outwards to find out which one's out, or maybe they're both out. Tape measure. Yes, I got very little room in here. So I'm going to go on the outside and figure out what I'm supposed to have here for measurement. Okay, I'm out on this side, so I'm going to fix that right now. Excuse me. Okay, I'm clamping the other side so the thing doesn't twist when I go to push it out. So I don't know how I got so far out, but I am. Okay, so, new plan. I'm going to take one of my screws out here, because obviously I now have tension. I'll definitely have to drop it in a new spot, which I have chosen there. So this, we're going to call this measurement gone wrong. So this can happen to anybody. And I'm almost glad it's happening right now. Because usually people show you what goes right. Now I'm showing you how to fix it when it goes wrong. Okay, so the bottom's clamped. I got it realigned. I'm going to put that screw right back in here. Okay. You know, I'm 60 years of age. This is keeping me in shape. Okay, I am going to insert another screw. I don't know why that's just not holding it. I have no idea, but I will insert one more screw, drill another hole. Okay, so that's 3 screws. Let's find out where I'm at now. I've got timber everywhere. Okay, my line is centered. The bottom square. Let's try this again. There's my measurement, perfect. So that's what it takes to fix that. We're going to see what the other side's doing here. Measure to the outside. I'm batting 100. They're even, but they're out. Okay. Okay, so this one's locked in. So I'm going to bring my weight around. And this is going to help me hold it in place to get my 71 inches. And I'm going to put a screw in that side. Talking about doing it live, right? So I go for my 71. I'm going to get a little close to the camera here. My dogs are crying. See, there's my 71. I just put the tape across and I pull back on this side and I have 71. So I'll have to insert a third screw. So you may have to start using 3 screws. Just watch where you put your screws in though. Remember, you have to cut 1 by 3 out the corners. There's my hole, my 1/8 hole. Here's my screw. And we're going to stretch this out again. There's no rush to do this. There's really no rush to do this. So you might as well just seriously try to get it right. Sorry about my head. There you go. And the glue is still oozing out the sides. How do I know this? Because I continually put my hands in it. If you got to spread it around, just spread it on the inside. Now I notice a lot of people take this glue, they pour it around the outside edges. And between you and I don't know what that does. Because unless you sandwich the glue between 2 pieces of something, it's not going to hold anything. I mean, they literally take it and they smear it all over the outside edges here. And then they show you the part. And they seem like they're happy about it. I would not be so happy about it. Just put enough glue and they'll hold the joint. That's all you need. Smearing it on the 2 joints on the outside, to me, does not do anything at all. Okay, so here we go. We have a full frame done. And that's kind of the way it's done. There's your full frame. There you go. This is number 12. Number 12. I mark them all just to keep track. But this is number 12. So you got the bottom. You're cutting out your spaces. The glue's still oozing out here. It's incredible. Look at that. At least it's coming out where it's supposed to. Now, theoretically, this is done. But just for fun, I'm going to clamp it back to the table. Get my tape measure, which I threw or a board that's dropped on the floor. And I'm going to measure outside to outside. She's good, okay? Now I'm going to take this one, bring it aside here. They're pretty, okay.